Welcome to the deep dive. Today,
Mhm.
we're tackling something huge.
Yeah, this is a big one.
We're going to dive into the sources that really get at the architecture of how we live. Not buildings or roads, but the ideas that let billions of us cooperate.
The conceptual blueprints, exactly. We're talking about shared beliefs, stories, and maybe surprisingly, the humble list.
Right, so this is a journey into history, a little bit of philosophy.
And a whole lot of political science. The sources really pull together these core themes. You have the nature of information itself, this wild idea of intersubjective reality.
We're definitely going to have to unpack that one.
Oh, yeah. And then the unexpected power of bureaucracy.
Which, let's be honest, most of us just find annoying.
And powerful. Annoying and powerful. It's all about how we move from, these fluid myths to the rigid order of a document.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? How do you manage complexity when you're not a tribe of 150 people anymore, but a nation of, say, 1.4 billion?
What's the glue?
Yeah, what is the invisible glue? And that's the tension we're exploring, the friction between the inspiring story and the rigid, boring, but necessary rulebook.
A perfect way to frame it.
So let's start at the very beginning with the smallest possible unit, information. What is it?
Well, the sources make us take a step back, almost into philosophy, right away.
Yeah, it raises this question of when does a thing, just a physical object,
Right.
when does it stop being just a thing and become information?
It's such a great place to start because it shows that information isn't inherent. It's all about context, the meaning we assign to it.
Okay, so give us an example. The sources had a couple of good ones.
A shutter on a window. Objectively, what is it?
Wood, metal, paint, a thing.
A thing, exactly. But what if that shutter being closed at 3 p.m. is a signal?
Ah, okay. So for, say, an Ottoman soldier or a spy like Sarah Aronson.
Yes. For them, that closed shutter is no longer just wood and paint. It's a message. It's life or death information. The coast is clear or the plan is off.
The physical object becomes a carrier for meaning within a specific network.
A network that agrees on the code. Same with the pigeon.
Is it just a bird or is it a message?
The pigeon doesn't know. The pigeon doesn't care. But for the network, it's a critical piece of data. So the information isn't in the pigeon, it's in the system that uses the pigeon.
And this whole struggle, trying to figure out what's a signal and what's just noise, that's basically the ancient search for truth.
It is, and it is incredibly difficult. You see it everywhere in history and literature. The sources bring up figures like Sir Ami trying to decipher religious texts.
Trying to separate the original meaning from centuries of interpretation and human error.
Yes, exactly. And then you have the fictional version of that, like in a Jorge Luis Borges story.
Oh, the master of this stuff.
Right. He writes about these infinite libraries or coded messages where the system is so complex it's impossible to know if what you found is the truth or just another layer of the system.
So it's not just about finding the data, it's about trusting the data.
And trusting the system that delivers it.
Yeah.
Which is always going to be filtered through human communication, which is, flawed.
Okay, so if information is so slippery, why did we even start organizing it? What's its function in our history?
Well, according to the source material, it really serves 3 basic functions for survival and cohesion.
Okay.
Prediction, meaning, and connection.
Prediction, meaning, connection. Let's break that down.
Okay, so think about ancient astronomy. You have astronomers and astrologers both looking at the same stars, same data.
Right, but for very different reasons.
Exactly. The astronomer wants prediction. When is the next eclipse? When do I plant the crops? It's objective, logistical data.
Survival stuff.
Survival stuff. The astrologer, on the other hand, is searching for meaning. What does this alignment of planets say about my fate or the empire's future?
That's the psychological framework.
It is. And then you have the third piece, connection. Think about music. Music is just organized sound. It's a complex information system, but it doesn't really predict anything, and its meaning is abstract. What it does, though,
It connects people.
it generates a shared emotional experience. It binds the tribe together. It strengthens the network.
And that connection, that cohesion, that's what matters when you try to scale up.
Yes, everything. The sources point to this specific moment around 70,000 years ago, the cognitive revolution.
This is where Homo sapiens gets its superpower, so to speak.
It is, because before that, we were basically stuck. Our social groups were limited by our brains, really. We could manage, maybe 150 meaningful relationships?
The famous Dunbar's number.
Right. You can trust the people you know personally. But 70,000 years ago, we smashed that limit. And the question is how?
And the answer is stories.
The answer is narrative. We developed this bizarre but game-changing ability to believe in things that don't physically exist.
Spirits, gods, tribal ancestors, shared rules.
Fictions. We developed the ability to cooperate based on shared, trusted fictions.
Right.
And that changed everything. It let us network with thousands and eventually millions of strangers.
So the story becomes the substitute for personal trust.
It's the ultimate glue. And the scale you can achieve with it it's just staggering. Look at the numbers the sources throw out.
The Catholic Church
1.4 billion followers, roughly.
and the population of China.
Also about 1.4 billion people.
So you have a nation-state organized by government and borders, and you have this global network equal in size that's organized almost entirely by a shared story.
A shared intersubjective narrative. It's just undeniable proof of the power of organized belief to coordinate people.
And it's not just about religion or nations. This is the engine of modern commerce, too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about brands. Apple, Nike.
They're stories. Stories about quality or coolness or identity.
And these stories, these fictions, drive trillions of dollars of very real objective transactions every year.
And on the political side, it can be a tool for total control.
For sure. The sources mention Stalin. He was a master of narrative. The story of class struggle, the story of the external enemy.
The story defined who was in the network and who had to be removed from it.
Even when the story flew in the face of objective reality, the narrative becomes the reality for the people inside it. It's the only way to get millions of strangers to act like a single unit.
Which brings us right to that term you used,
Yeah.
the concept that makes all of this possible, intersubjective reality.
Right. So we really have to define this clearly, because once you get this third category, everything else it clicks into place.
Okay, so the sources lay out three kinds of reality. Let's go through them.
First up is the easy one, objective reality.
The physical world.
The physical world. Facts that are true whether humans exist or not. Gravity, thermodynamics, a rock landing on your foot.
It's going to hurt, regardless of what you believe about the rock.
Exactly. Independent of us.
Okay, number two.
Subjective reality. This is your internal world. My feeling of hunger, your memory of being 5 years old, my preference for the color blue.
It's real, but only to one person. If I disappear, so does my subjective reality.
Precisely. And now, for the main event. The third one.
Intersubjective reality.
This is the engine of civilization. This is the realm of things that exist only because a large network of people agrees that they exist.
And agrees on the rules for how they work.
That's the critical part. You can't run a city, let alone a global economy, on objective facts alone. You need this shared layer of agreed-upon fiction.
So we're talking about things like law,
Law. God.
money.
Money is the perfect example. It has zero objective value. A dollar bill is just paper and ink.
But we organize our entire lives around acquiring it.
We do. And think about something like Bitcoin. It doesn't even have a physical form. It's just entries in a digital ledger.
Yeah.
Its value is 100% based on the shared intersubjective belief of millions of people that it has value.
It's pure consensus.
Pure consensus. Or even just buying a pizza. You tap your card, no gold changes hands. It's just a digital signal bouncing between banks.
Which are also intersubjective entities.
Exactly. And the whole thing works seamlessly because we all agree to believe in the fiction of digital currency and property rights and contract law.
It's all built on this shared story, which leads to that really interesting question the sources ask.
When did the United States begin to exist?
Right. Objectively, the land was always here. So what was the moment?
There is no single objective moment. It began to exist when a critical mass of people and institutions agreed that it did.
When the intersubjective consensus was strong enough.
And if that consensus were to dissolve tomorrow, the reality of the United States would be under threat, even if the land and the people remained.
And what keeps that consensus alive?
Stories. The narrative. The sources are really clear on this. Stories allow us to do two incredible things. They let us create kind of false memories, a collective history we can all share.
Even if we weren't there, and even if it's not perfectly accurate.
Right, and they let us create fictional relationships of trust with millions of people we will never, ever meet.
And that ability, we're told, is the key difference between Homo sapiens and, say, Neanderthals.
It seems to be. We could scale our trust network beyond face-to-face relationships. They couldn't. We built empires. They lived in small bands.
But that ability is also a weapon, a tool for power.
Oh, absolutely. Narratives are never neutral. The sources point to how powerful stories about divine right, historical destiny were used to justify things like the mass occupation of the Levant. The story provides the moral fuel.
And then there's the much darker side, the rise of the Nazis in 1933.
A devastatingly effective use of this. They built an entire intersubjective reality from scratch.
A story of persecution, of purity, of a threat that needed to be eliminated.
It was a complete fiction, but it was a fiction that organized millions of people into a force that, that acted on that fiction with horrific objective consequences.
This brings us to a really difficult ethical place, the idea of the noble lie.
Yeah, this comes from Plato. It's a tricky concept.
The idea that a manufactured myth might actually be necessary to keep society stable.
To maintain order and cohesion. It's this profound idea that for the good of the group, a little bit of untruth might be required.
You might have to sacrifice absolute objective truth for the sake of collective survival.
The sources connect this back to something as ancient as a mammoth hunt.
How so?
A mammoth hunt is incredibly dangerous. It requires dozens of people to act as one, with absolute trust in the leader and the plan. If one person starts questioning things halfway through,
the whole thing falls apart. People die.
So you need the story, the myth of the infallible leader, the sacredness of the hunt. To ensure that unquestioning cooperation, you need the noble lie.
And a modern example.
The Manhattan Project. Robert Oppenheimer.
Building the atomic bomb.
Right. The goal was purely objective science. But the project itself was wrapped in layers and layers of secrecy, of managed narratives, of lies.
For national security, to keep the project on track.
They had to use noble lies to maintain order to achieve their version of a wise outcome, which was ending the war. It's this eternal balancing act.
The dilemma of any large-scale network.
Exactly. You're always in this messy negotiation between three ideals: the pursuit of truth, the maintenance of order, and the hope of achieving wisdom.
And the noble lie is what happens when you decide to sacrifice a little bit of truth to get a lot more order.
It's the pivot point. But here's the thing about stories, even noble ones. They're flimsy, they're fluid. It's hard to run a tax system on a poem.
You need something more concrete, something rigid.
And that is the perfect pivot. We move from the power of the fluid story to the inevitable next step.
Writing it all down. The rise of the document.
This is the moment society decides to outsource its memory.
And it's not a simple upgrade. There's a real tension here. Stories are what create nations. They're inspiring. Documents are
boring, and they're for calculating taxes. But you need both.
The sources frame this so well when they talk about the idea of nationhood.
Yeah, they bring up the Ukrainian Jewish poet Bialik after the Kishinev pogrom in 1903.
He's wrestling with this question of how does a community hold together after being physically shattered? How does the idea survive?
And then you contrast that with Theodor Herzl,
the founder of modern Zionism,
whose famous line is that a nation is born from dreams and songs and fantasies.
That's the pure narrative power we were just talking about. The nation as a myth.
But, and this is the crucial but, you can't turn that dream into a physical state without
paperwork,
without a very boring, very rigorous support system. This is where stories and lists become these two pillars.
One is exciting, the other is tedious.
Right. The national myth, the dream, the song, that's what convinces people to make sacrifices, like paying taxes.
And the tax records, the lists, are what make the dream financially possible.
It's a bit of a harsh reality, but the sources point out that functional patriotism involves paying your taxes, because the list of who paid is what funds the whole operation.
So you have the emotional story that makes us willing, and the boring list that makes us able.
And this wasn't really a choice. This whole shift was forced on us by a major hardware limitation.
Our own brains.
Our memories are terrible. Once you get beyond a small tribe, you simply cannot keep track of who owes what to whom, who owns which piece of land. It's impossible.
The oral tradition just breaks down at a certain scale.
It completely collapses, which is why the invention of writing was so revolutionary. And not just any writing, administrative writing.
This is where we get to King Shulgi of Ur.
Around 2053 BCE, this is a critical moment.
So what was he doing?
He was one of the first to really systematize using cuneiform clay tablets to track the economy.
So not writing poetry, he was writing receipts.
He was writing lists. How many sheep were delivered? How many goats? How much barley is in the storehouse? It sounds so incredibly dry.
But the implications are massive.
Staggering. For the first time, the state's memory could exist outside of a living person's head. It could track debts and ownership across generations. The document became the institutional memory, and that broke the biological bottleneck of civilization.
Okay, so problem solved. We've outsourced our memory from our squishy brains to these inorganic documents, clay, paper, whatever.
Right. Storage problem solved.
But every solution creates a new problem.
And the new problem is the search problem.
You've got a warehouse full of clay tablets. How do you find the one about that sheep delivery from 19 years ago?
If you can't retrieve the information, it's useless. The whole system gets clogged and collapses.
So we need a solution for the search problem.
And the solution we invented, the sources argue, is bureaucracy.
So it's not just about grumpy people at the DMV.
Not at all. Bureaucracy is fundamentally a system. It's a structure built on algorithms and protocols, rules, filing systems, standard procedures, all designed to manage the storage and, crucially, the retrieval of our outsourced memory.
It's the operating system for the archive.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's what turns a pile of data into functional knowledge.
But as we're about to see, that predictable order comes at a very, very high price.
Yes, this is the central trade-off, the really painful compromise at the heart of any large society.
So the sources say that bureaucracy imposes this artificial order on the world.
An order that's ruled by the desk, not by reality. It has to simplify a messy world to manage it. And that's its inherent flaw.
The flaw being that it tries to cram the fluid, constantly changing real world
Objective reality.
into these rigid, fixed boxes that were created on paper.
Exactly. And the boxes can't change as fast as reality does.
And this is the core argument. To maintain its own internal order, bureaucracy often has to sacrifice external truth.
It has to. It gets locked into its own classifications, its own metrics. It pursues the goals it was designed to measure, even if those goals no longer reflect the real world.
So the system is designed to measure, I don't know, the number of forms processed per day.
Then the bureaucrats will get really, really good at processing forms. Even if those forms don't solve the actual problem they were created to address, the system starts serving its own rules, not reality.
The sources have a great historical example for this problem: fixed categories. Carl Linnaeus.
The father of taxonomy. He gave us that rigid classification system for life. Genus, species, kingdom.
A system we still use.
We do, and it was essential. But it struggles with the actual reality of evolution.
Which is fluid and continuous.
Nature doesn't care about our neat little boxes. Species are always changing, blurring, evolving, so the bureaucratic list of species is always a little bit wrong, a little bit out of date. It's a snapshot of a moving target.
And we face this today. The sources bring up viruses.
A perfect modern example. Are they alive or are they not alive? Biologically, they exist in this gray area.
But for bureaucracy to work, for public health policy, for research funding, we have to put them in a box. We have to label them.
So we create an administrative reality that simplifies and therefore slightly distorts the objective truth, because we have to in order to function.
So the bureaucrats, these unseen managers, are constantly fighting this battle. They're trying to maintain a necessary artificial order, even when they know it doesn't perfectly match the real world.
Which leads to the big question, is this flawed, truth-sacrificing system the best we can do? Is it the only alternative to total chaos at a large scale?
And the evidence seems to say yes.
For the most part. The sources give a fantastic case study here on the birth of this kind of organized thinking. The 1854 London cholera outbreak.
Okay, set the scene.
So, in 1854, the dominant belief, the shared public myth, was the miasma theory.
That diseases like cholera were spread by bad air or foul smells.
Right. And the entire public health bureaucracy was organized around that myth. They were trying to clean up the smells, which did nothing to stop the cholera.
And then along comes someone like John Snow, a proto-bureaucrat.
He didn't buy the grand narrative. He started doing the tedious work, the bureaucratic work.
Made a list.
He made a list. He recorded every death, where it happened, and, crucially, which water pump the victim's family used.
He was collecting and organizing data.
Meticulously. And it was that list, that map, that data-driven bureaucratic process that finally allowed him to pinpoint the real source.
The Broad Street pump. He overturned the myth with a list.
Exactly. The structured administrative approach led to the objective truth, while the fluid popular story was leading to more death. It's a powerful example.
So this confirms it. Myth and bureaucracy. They're the two pillars.
One provides the why, the emotional energy, the justification. The other provides the how, the structure, the process, the repeatable method.
And that procedure, that administrative flow, that's where real power lies in a modern state.
It's not just with the leader giving speeches. It's with the people who control the flow of information, the people who write the rules for the filing cabinets.
Because whoever controls the archive controls the official version of reality.
And that's why bureaucracy is so deeply threatening to us on a human level. It moves power from a visible person
Death by tiger, an objective threat you can see.
to death by document, a cold, impersonal, bureaucratic process that can erase you.
Which is pure Kafka.
The ultimate literary expression of that fear. In his novels, the enemy isn't a person, it's the system. An endless, illogical machine of forms and protocols that crushes you without malice.
And that fear is real. It's why, throughout history, one of the first things revolutionaries do is burn the archives.
Destroy the records. Erase the old bureaucratic realities so you can write a new story.
The sources even bring this down to a personal level, with the story of Yuval Harari's grandfather.
Bruno Ledinger, yeah. In times of political chaos, the document that defines you, your passport, your birth certificate, that piece of paper can literally be the difference between life and death. The list becomes a weapon.
So where does that leave us today? For most of history, we've relied on what the sources call miracle documents.
Sacred texts like the Bible or the Quran, documents seen as perfect, unchanging truths that anchor our shared realities.
And now, in the 21st century, we're being promised a new kind of miracle document.
Error-free artificial intelligence.
The ultimate bureaucrat.
Right. The promise is that we can replace all our flawed human paperwork and biased human decision-making with perfect, neutral, self-optimizing algorithms.
An attempt to engineer the messy human element completely out of the system.
To get rid of the noble lie, the subjective interpretation, the need for negotiation, and replace it all with cold, calculated perfection. #tag outro.
So we've come all this way, from the cognitive revolution 70,000 years ago,
The invention of the shared story,
through the necessity of the noble lie, the first administrative lists in ancient Ur.
and the rise of bureaucracy as this dangerous but essential solution to managing our own complexity.
It really is a complete picture of how we built the modern world.
And I think the core tension is so clear now. It's not really a story of good versus evil.
Yeah.
It's a tension between the fluid, beautiful, inspiring power of the myth
And the rigid, necessary, and often soul-crushing order of the bureaucratic record.
and you can't have a large-scale civilization without both. Both are essential and both are deeply, deeply flawed.
And all of human history, all our progress and our arguments has happened in the space between those two flawed pillars.
In the negotiation, we're always negotiating the meaning of the story and the rules of the list.
So we'll leave you with a final thought to chew on. A question for our own complex world.
If our civilizations have always depended on the errors and distortions of both myth and bureaucracy, things that require us to argue, to compromise, to find wisdom,
And now the 21st century is promising us error-free AI to manage our networks and read our lists.
what happens to a society when the very possibility of error, and with it, the need for human negotiation and hard-won wisdom is engineered out of the system?
What does truth or even order look like when it's managed by a machine that only knows perfection? Something to think about until the next deep dive.